Her sister was chosen, until the cowboy walked by and claimed her instead. The city of Neoterra gleamed under a pale green sky, its towers stretching like steel fingers into the clouds. Between the buildings, airways buzzed with hovercars and delivery drones, while holographic advertisements flickered with the images of Zythurian leaders, tall, elegant beings with translucent skin and eyes that seemed to see right through humans. Their rule had been in place for over a century, and the people of Neoterra had learned one simple truth: resistance was dangerous, and survival meant obedience. Leela Corin stood at the edge of the central plaza, her heart pounding as she watched the crowd gather for the event of the century. Every 100 years, the Zythurians held a ceremony to select a human to serve the High Council. The chosen human was taken to the orbiting council ship, where they would live among aliens, serving as a symbol of loyalty. The title sounded honorable to outsiders, but to humans it meant submission, a life cut off from family and freedom. Her younger sister, Mara, stood near the center of the plaza, looking nervous but composed. Leela felt a tight knot in her chest. Mara had always been adventurous, the kind who climbed towers and explored forbidden alleys. But she was also kind-hearted, trusting, and unaware of how dangerous the Zythurians' world could be. Now, that innocence was about to be tested in the harshest way possible. The Zythurian officials floated above the stage, their elongated limbs and shimmering robes reflecting the plaza lights. A voice echoed through the speakers, calm and otherworldly. "Humans of Neoterra, witness the choosing of your representative. One will serve the High Council and demonstrate your loyalty." Leela gritted her teeth. Loyalty. To the Zythurians, that word carried no warmth, only submission. She squeezed Mara's hand as the crowd fell silent, waiting for the announcement. A Zythurian clerk, tall and angular, stepped forward and scanned the assembly with eyes that glowed faintly. When his gaze landed on Mara, the crowd gasped softly. Mara's name was called, echoing through the plaza like a bell. Mara Corin, chosen for the High Council. The words hit Leela like a physical blow. She stumbled backward, heart racing, as Mara's eyes widened in shock. Around them, humans murmured, some bowing their heads, others holding back tears. Mara looked at Leela, her face pale. "Leela," she whispered, her voice trembling. Leela shook her head. "No, not you, Mara. I won't let them take you." But the officials were already moving forward, levitating toward Mara with gentle, unyielding force. Mara's feet lifted slightly from the ground, and a holographic harness formed around her. Leela felt helpless as her sister was slowly drawn toward the waiting council ship, which hovered silently above the plaza like a gleaming predator. Then, from the side of the plaza, a sudden commotion drew everyone's attention. A loud clatter rang out as a figure rode into the plaza on a strange, hovering mount. It was shaped like a horse but glowed faintly and left a streak of light behind it. The rider wore a wide-brimmed hat and a long coat, leather straps crisscrossing his chest. He looked ordinary in a world where humans had been subdued and refined to mediocrity, but there was a spark in his eyes that made people stop and stare. The crowd parted instinctively as he approached the stage. He stopped before the hovering officials, tipping his hat slightly. "I claim her," he said, his voice calm but firm. "The girl there, she's mine." The plaza erupted in gasps. Humans froze, unsure whether to cheer or flee. The Zythurians stared, clearly unprepared for such audacity. One of the council members tilted his head, a motion that seemed almost like curiosity. "Explain yourself, human," the Zythurian said, its voice musical and alien, yet carrying an unmistakable edge of authority. The cowboy Jax, as Leela would later learn, straightened. "Under the old Earth Code," he said, his voice steady, "family bonds take priority over your so-called law. If you want her, you'll have to go through me first." The crowd murmured again. Some humans whispered excitedly, remembering stories of the old code. a set of laws that had once governed human life centuries before the Zythurians' arrival. The council looked unimpressed. "Human law is irrelevant," the Zythurian said. "No tradition can override the choosing of the High Council," Jax shrugged. "Guess we'll see about that." Leela watched, a mixture of fear and hope rising in her chest. She didn't know this man. He was a stranger, a cowboy from the outer colonies, someone who lived beyond the control of the Zythurians. Yet somehow, he exuded a confidence that made Leela feel as if the impossible could be possible. Mara's eyes met Jax's, and there was a glimmer of relief there, faint but undeniable. The council convened, floating in a tight circle above the stage. Their whispers echoed faintly in the plaza. It was clear they hadn't encountered a human willing to openly challenge them in generations. Finally, one spoke. "A challenge may be made. If the human proves himself worthy, he may claim the chosen. If he fails, consequences will be severe." Jax nodded as if this were exactly what he expected. "I accept," he said. The officials clapped their hands, and suddenly the plaza transformed. Holographic panels rose from the ground, forming a series of trials for Jax. A maze of walls, platforms, and puzzles shimmered in the air. The challenge was designed to test strength, intelligence, and cunning, a display of human inferiority in the council's eyes. Leela felt her stomach twist. "He can't do it," she whispered to herself. "He's only one man." But Mara squeezed her hand, whispering, "He's human, that counts for something." The first trial began. Jax stepped forward, eyes scanning the maze with calm precision. A panel of holographic symbols lit up before him, moving rapidly in a pattern that was impossible for most humans to follow. Without hesitation, he pulled a small device from his belt, a contraption of wires, metal, and old-fashioned ingenuity. He manipulated the device with deft fingers, improvising a way to synchronize the symbols. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Humans whispered in awe, while the Zythurians tilted their heads, their expressionless faces hiding shock. Leela felt her chest lift with hope. Maybe this stranger could succeed. Maybe humanity wasn't as weak as the Zythurians thought. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the plaza, Jax continued the trial, moving with both speed and careful thought. Each obstacle, leaping gaps between floating platforms, navigating spinning holographic blades, solving cryptic Zythurian puzzles, was met with a combination of courage, quick thinking, and a strange kind of instinct that no alien logic could predict. Leela cheered quietly to herself, gripping the edge of the plaza barrier. She had never believed in heroes, not really, but something about this man stirred a fire within her. He wasn't just fighting for Mara. He was fighting for humanity, for the idea that humans could still stand tall in a galaxy that had long dismissed them as weak. Hours passed. By the time the first trial ended, the sun had disappeared behind the green-tinted horizon. Jax had passed it, but the council didn't show any emotion. They were calculating, always calculating. Leela knew the next trials would be harder, more dangerous. But for the first time, she felt something she hadn't in years: hope. Mara, standing beside her, whispered, maybe humans still have a chance." Leela nodded. "If he can do this, maybe we all do." And so, under the strange green sky of Neoterra, with a cowboy who seemed larger than life in a city that had long forgotten courage, the first steps toward a rebellion, quiet, dangerous, and brilliantly human, had begun. The plaza emptied slowly, but the story was far from over. Jax had claimed more than a girl. He had claimed the imagination of a people who had been told they were powerless. And in that claim lay the spark that could one day ignite an entire world. The plaza of Neoterra had quieted, but the air still vibrated with anticipation. Jax, the cowboy from the outer colonies, stood at the edge of the first trial's holographic maze, wiping dust from his worn coat. He glanced at Mara and Leela, who had moved closer, their faces tense but filled with hope. "You'll be okay," Mara whispered, though her voice trembled. "I trust you." Jax nodded, tipping his hat slightly, a gesture that seemed to steady both of them. "I'll get her back, you just hang on." The Zythurians, floating above, observed silently. Their translucent skin shimmered as they murmured in their musical, alien language. The first trial was meant to test intelligence, a quantum puzzle that, by design, should have taken hours, if not days, to solve. Yet Jax walked toward the floating panels with calm determination. He studied the patterns. Symbols shifted, lights flickered, and lines of energy traced impossible paths through the air. The Zythurians expected panic. They expected hesitation. Instead, Jax pulled a small leather notebook from his belt and sketched rapidly, connecting symbols with rough lines, as if the puzzle were a map instead of a weapon designed to break him. Leela watched, her mouth dry. How is he doing that?" she murmured. Mara shook her head. "I don't know, but it's human, that's why." Minutes passed, and then Jax acted. He used a small metal tool he had fashioned himself, tapping into the puzzle's energy lines. Sparks flew, lights blinked, and the symbols finally locked into place. A soft chime rang across the plaza, the sign of success. The crowd erupted quietly. Humans whispered among themselves, their eyes wide with disbelief. The Zythurians, meanwhile, tilted their heads, their faces unreadable. But even they could not hide the flicker of surprise in their glowing eyes. "Impressive," one of the council members said, though its voice carried a sharp edge. "But intelligence alone is not enough. The next trial will test endurance." Suddenly, the plaza floor dissolved beneath Jax, replaced by a holographic platform floating hundreds of feet above the crowd. The trial demanded physical skill, agility, and the ability to think under pressure. Platforms spun, walls rose and fell, and deadly energy fields traced arcs through the air. The challenge was designed so that any misstep could mean failure, or worse. Jax didn't hesitate. He adjusted the strap of his coat, checked his makeshift tools, and stepped onto the first platform. It shifted under his weight, forcing him to balance carefully. Above him, spinning holographic blades swung dangerously, slicing the air with soundless precision. He leapt, landing on the next platform with a skill that spoke of years spent riding through rough terrain on the outer colonies. Every jump, every twist was precise yet fluid, like the dance of someone who had lived their life on the edge. Leela's hands gripped the barrier. "He's incredible," she whispered. Mara nodded, tears threatening to fall. "We've never had someone like him, not in 100 years." Jax's movements weren't just physical, they were instinctive. He noticed patterns the Zythurians hadn't considered, predicted the spinning blades, rhythm, and used the energy fields to propel himself further. When a platform tilted unexpectedly, he adjusted, landing safely with a grin. Hours seemed to pass in mere minutes. The sun dipped lower, casting long green shadows across the plaza. Finally, Jax reached the end of the endurance trial, his chest heaving, coat scorched and torn in places. Yet he stood tall, facing the Zythurians with calm confidence. "You are stronger than we anticipated," the council member said, its tone measured. "But strength is only one aspect. Loyalty is the final test." Jax's jaw tightened. Loyalty. He glanced at Mara, standing at the plaza's edge. He knew that test wouldn't be physical or mental. It would strike at his heart, trying to break the bond that had brought him here. The plaza transformed again. Holographic chains appeared, symbolizing the council's attempts to manipulate him. Mara was projected in several images, each one placed in impossible situations, as if to say, "Choose your own safety or risk losing her." Jax's eyes narrowed. The council had underestimated him once again. He stepped forward, ignoring the threats, the illusions, the traps. Every step he took was deliberate, every move a declaration of his human instinct to protect what mattered most. Leela couldn't tear her eyes away. "He won't give up," she whispered. "He can't." The crowd held its collective breath. Humans had long been considered weak, predictable and loyal only when forced. Yet here was proof that human loyalty could be a weapon stronger than any alien technology. Jax's heart drove him, his courage guided him, and his intuition allowed him to see through every trap. Finally, he reached the center of the holographic field. Mara's projection smiled faintly. He extended his hand, touching the image, and the holograms dissolved. The council looked astonished. No human had ever completed the loyalty test, none had ever survived the endurance trial, and yet here he stood. "Enough," Jax said, voice steady. "I claim her." The Zythurians hovered silently, their faces unreadable. Then slowly one of them spoke. "You have passed what should have been impossible. The challenge is complete, but do not think this changes your place. There are consequences for your defiance." Jax shrugged. "Consequences don't scare me. Protecting her doesn't have a price I'm afraid to pay." The council convened, whispering in rapid Zythurian tones. The plaza held its breath. Humans who had spent generations hiding their fear and anger suddenly felt something stir inside them. Hope. If one human could stand against the Zythurians and succeed, then maybe resistance wasn't impossible. Mara ran forward the moment the council finished its deliberation. She threw her arms around Jax. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You saved me." Leela followed, hugging both of them, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't think anyone could do it," she said. You proved them wrong." Jax smiled faintly, tipping his hat again. "We did it together. Humans are stronger than they think." For the first time in decades, the people of Neoterra saw a human stand tall against their alien rulers and survive. Murmurs spread through the crowd, growing louder as hope rippled outward like wildfire. The council, though still imposing and powerful, seemed to hesitate. They had underestimated the unpredictability, ingenuity, and sheer determination of a human being, and that hesitation was a weakness that humans had rarely been able to exploit. Jax helped Mara to her feet, his hands steady and confident. He looked up at the council ship, hovering silently above. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "They'll try again, but humans fight back." Leela's eyes shone with determination. "Then we fight with you. We'll show them what humans are capable of." As the crowd dispersed, humans whispered to one another, spreading the story of the cowboy who had claimed a sister and defied the council. For the first time, the idea that humans could stand against their alien overlords felt real. It was no longer just a dream or a story from the outer colonies. It was happening right before their eyes. Jax, Mara, and Leela left the plaza together, moving toward the shadows of the city where few dared to go. They needed to plan, to prepare, and to understand the full extent of the council's power. Yet even in the darkness of Neoterra's alleys, a spark burned bright, the spark of human courage, ingenuity, and loyalty. Hours later, as the city slept under the strange green sky, Jax looked at Mara and Leela. "We've won a battle," he said, "but the war is just beginning." And in that quiet moment, the three of them, Cowboy and sisters, felt something they hadn't in a long time, a taste of freedom and the unshakable belief that humans, no matter how small, could challenge the stars themselves. The night had settled over Neoterra, casting its greenish glow over the metallic city. The skyscrapers shimmered under the artificial lights, reflecting the hum of hover traffic and distant energy pulses. For most humans, the city was a place of routine fear, a world dominated by the Zythurians, where obedience was survival. But for Leela, Mara, and Jax, it had become the center of possibility. Inside a shadowed alley, the three huddled around a small, portable holographic map Jax had drawn using scavenged tech. Lines traced across the city's districts, indicating patrols, energy gates, and observation points. Jax's fingers moved confidently, marking weak spots and potential routes to the council ship in orbit. "We can't just wait for them to come to us," Jax said. "They'll adapt fast and the next trial will be harsher. We need to act before they think we're predictable. Leela frowned. But how? They control everything, the skyways, the streets, even communications. How do we reach their orbiting ship? Jack smiled faintly. With what humans do best, creativity, ingenuity, and a little bit of courage. Mara, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. You mean we're going to fight them? Her voice wavered, but there was determination beneath the fear. Jax nodded. We're going to show them that humans can't be controlled like machines, that our strength isn't in numbers or technology. They underestimate what makes us human. The following day, the council delivered their response. Holographic messages flashed across Neoterra's major plazas, displaying the faces of the council members. The human Jax has passed the initial trials, the lead counselor intoned, voice calm but chilling. However, loyalty alone is not enough. He has challenged the natural order. He will face additional tests, intellect, strength, and adaptability. Fail, and the consequences will extend to all humans. The message sent a ripple of tension through the city. Humans whispered in fear, yet there was also excitement. For centuries, no human had ever stood against the council and survived. Now the impossible seemed possible. Leela clenched her fists. We can't let them scare us. We've seen what he can do. We need to help. Jax looked at both sisters. I can do some of it, but I need you, Leela, to handle the technical side. Mara, your insight into human behavior, your courage, is going to be just as important. Together, we can do this. The next trial began at dawn. The council had set up a floating arena outside the city, surrounded by energy fields designed to prevent escape. The first challenge tested intellect. Jax faced a giant holographic interface with streams of alien code, moving faster than any human could normally process. Leela knelt nearby, feeding him signals from her portable scanner. The pattern repeats every 30 seconds, she said. If you watch the cycle, you can anticipate the code. Jax nodded. He studied the code with calm focus. His hands moved with precise movements, altering holographic nodes and redirecting energy flows. Slowly, he traced the solution, anticipating each change before it happened. A soft chime sounded, and the arena lights flashed, a sign of success. The Zythurians murmured among themselves. No human had ever completed this challenge alone. They had expected hesitation, panic, or failure, but Jax moved with a strange combination of calmness and instinct, like someone born to solve impossible problems. The next test was physical, designed to push endurance and agility to their limits. Platforms hovered in the air, spinning and shifting unpredictably. Energy fields snaked across the gaps, creating a deadly obstacle course. Jax leapt onto the first platform. He felt the boards tilt and sway beneath him, but his experience on the outer colonies, where survival meant improvisation, made him adjust instinctively. A spinning blade appeared and he ducked, rolling with the momentum. Above him, energy arcs shifted unexpectedly. Most humans would freeze, but Jax saw the pattern, noted the timing, and used the arcs to propel himself further. Every move was precise, calculated, yet fluid, a mixture of instinct and human ingenuity. Mara cheered quietly from the observation platform. Go, Jax, you can do it. Leela, monitoring from the ground, shouted instructions. Step to the left, timing S off. Her voice was calm but urgent. Together they became a seamless team, human mind guiding human instinct. By the time Jax reached the final platform, sweat soaked his brow and his coat was torn. Yet he stood tall, facing the council once more. You are resourceful, one counselor said. Its voice carried the faintest edge of doubt. But adaptability alone will not secure victory. The final trial is designed to break your loyalty and your mind simultaneously. You will face your greatest fears and deepest attachments. The final trial was psychological. Mara was placed on a floating platform in the center of a holographic arena. Around her, projections created illusions of danger. falling towers, burning streets, and threats designed to provoke fear and doubt. Jax took a deep breath. He could feel the weight of the city's eyes upon him. This was the test he had feared most, not a puzzle, not a physical challenge, but a trial of trust, courage, and humanity. "Stay focused," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "Stay human." The illusions attacked, shifting unpredictably. Fire erupted near Mara, while shadowy figures blocked paths and projected whispers of fear. Jax had to make choices faster than thought, deciding which threat to confront, which to ignore. Every decision could mean failure. Yet in the chaos, Jax moved with clarity. He didn't just rely on speed or strength. He relied on instinct, empathy, and intuition. He guided Mara with precise movements, signaling paths and creating openings in the holographic chaos. Leela's voice crackled through his communicator. "Don't look at the projections. Focus on her and trust yourself," Jax obeyed. He ignored the illusions of fire, collapse, and despair. His eyes were fixed on Mara. Every leap, every maneuver, every choice was about protecting her. And in doing so, he completed the trial. The council stared in disbelief. No human had ever succeeded in all three trials. The projections dissolved and Mara was safe. "You have succeeded beyond expectation," the lead counselor said, its tone unreadable but tense. "But know this, your defiance will not go unanswered. We will adapt. We will respond. Humans are fragile, and yet you have shown strength that may be dangerous." Jax lowered his hat. "Then we'll keep showing you. Humans don't break, we adapt, we fight, and we protect what matters." Mara ran to him, hugging him tightly. "You did it," she whispered. "I knew you would." Leela embraced them both. "You've shown them that humans are more than they think, more than they ever imagined." Jax shook his head. "It's not just me, it's all of us. It's every human who's ever been told they're weak. That's why this matters." In the days following the trials, Neoterra was alive with whispers. Humans discussed the impossibility of Jax's success. Street corners buzzed with excitement. Some dared to hope. Others simply marveled. The Zythurians, for the first time in generations, were unsettled. Their calculations had failed to predict the unpredictability of human courage and ingenuity. Jax, Mara, and Leela knew the war was far from over. The council would respond, and the next challenges would be even greater. Yet they also knew that the trials had given humans something priceless, proof that they could stand, resist, and even triumph. As night fell, Jax looked out over the city. Hovercars streaked past, and the faint hum of energy fields filled the air. He thought of the council ship hovering above, waiting, and he smiled faintly. "We've proven something," he said quietly. "They may come again, but humans never give up." Leela nodded. "And we'll be ready." Mara squeezed his hand. "With you, I believe that we can face anything." Jax tipped his hat, as always, a small gesture that carried confidence, reassurance, and the promise of defiance. "Then we start preparing. The council may be strong, but they don't understand humans. They never will." For the first time in generations, humans looked up at the stars not in fear, but with hope. And somewhere in that hope burned the undeniable truth. When humans fight, they fight with heart, ingenuity, and courage that no alien logic could ever predict. The trials had ended, but the real journey was just beginning. And Jax, the cowboy who claimed a sister, had become more than a hero. He had become a symbol of human defiance and potential. The green-tinged sky of Neoterra had turned darker than usual, heavy clouds swirling over the towering city. Rumors spread faster than hovercars could travel, whispers of the council's anger, of patrols intensifying, and of entire districts being locked down. For most humans, this would have been a nightmare, a warning to remain obedient. But for Leela, Mara, and Jax, it was a signal. The council had reacted to human defiance, and that meant they were paying attention. "We knew this would happen," Jax said, examining a small map of the city's defenses. "They won't sit idle. They'll come after us, and they'll be smart about it." Leela frowned. We've already seen what they can do. How can we stop them? Jax tapped his hat. We won't stop them, we'll outthink them. Humans adapt faster than they expect. They rely on rules and predictability. We rely on ingenuity and unpredictability. Mara leaned forward, eyes bright despite the tension. Then we strike first before they corner us. The plan was risky. Jax, Leela, and Mara would infiltrate a high-security council communications hub. From there, they could intercept the council's commands to drones and patrols, giving humans a fighting chance. The hub was heavily guarded, both by technology and elite Zythurian soldiers. Every step required precision, courage, and absolute trust in each other. They moved at dawn, shadows slipping between the city's massive towers. Jax led, his experience in the outer colonies evident in every silent movement. Leela carried a small device she had modified from scavenged tech, designed to jam surveillance signals. Mara, though less experienced in stealth, provided sharp eyes and quick thinking, spotting guards and obstacles before they became threats. At the hub's perimeter, the team faced the first challenge, an energy field that pulsed in unpredictable patterns. Even a single touch could trigger alarms, sending drones hurtling toward them. Jack studied the field, his eyes narrowing. Watch the rhythm. It's not random, it's a cycle. Follow me. Step by step, he moved through the field, timing each leap with precision. Leela and Mara followed, their hearts pounding as energy arcs snapped just inches from their hands. At last, they reached the entrance and Leela activated her device. The field flickered and dimmed, giving them a narrow window to slip inside. Inside, the hub was a maze of corridors filled with hums of alien machinery and holographic interfaces. The Zythurians had anticipated resistance, but not human creativity. Leela hacked into the central control panel, rerouting patrols and shutting down cameras. Mara kept watch, alert to any sign of guards or unexpected threats. Jax moved silently toward the mainframe, his cowboy instincts guiding him through the unfamiliar terrain. The trio worked as a unit, blending technical skill, intuition, and courage, a combination the Council had never seen from humans. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights pulsed across the corridors. Zythurian soldiers appeared, moving with speed and precision. The Council had anticipated their infiltration, or perhaps it had been a trap. Jax didn't hesitate. He drew a small plasma gun from his belt, an improvised weapon capable of short bursts. With careful aim, he disabled the first wave of drones, using their own momentum against them. Mara ducked behind a console, hurling a makeshift smoke bomb she had crafted from scavenged chemicals. Leela's fingers flew over her device, disrupting the hub's security systems just long enough for them to move deeper. "Keep going," Jax shouted, pulling them toward the central chamber. The Council, realizing their plans were in jeopardy, sent reinforcements. Energy drones hovered at entrances, laser beams crisscrossed the corridors, and Zythurian soldiers patrolled with methodical precision. It was chaos, but humans thrive in chaos. Jax led them through vents, over catwalks, and across open shafts, always moving faster than their pursuers could predict. Each step required split-second decisions: jump or duck, disable or avoid, fight or flee. And with each choice, they proved something fundamental. The Council could calculate and plan, but humans could improvise. Finally, they reached the main chamber, the heart of the communications hub. A massive console displayed streams of Zythurian code, controlling drones, patrols, and orbital surveillance. Leela stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly but her mind clear. "Give me a moment," she said. Her fingers flew across the interface, inputting sequences, rerouting systems, and creating false signals to confuse the Council. Jack stood guard, his eyes scanning for threats. Mara assisted, identifying vulnerabilities in the system that even Leela hadn't seen. Together, they became unstoppable. not because of technology, but because of their ability to work as a unit, as humans. The Council's drones surged into the chamber, but Leela's manipulation caused them to collide with each other, buying precious time. Jax took down the remaining drones with precise shots, each move calm and deliberate, almost effortless. After tense minutes that felt like hours, Leela leaned back, breathing hard. "We did it," she said. "We've got control for now." Jax nodded, but his gaze was fixed on the communication screen. "Now we make our next move. We can't just defend, we have to act. If we want to save more humans and stop them from taking others, we need to strike at the heart of their operations." Mara's eyes lit up. "The Council ship, that's where they hold the chosen humans. That's where my friends, my family, they're all at risk." Jax looked at her, his expression serious. "Then that's our next target, and this time we'll do more than survive. We'll fight back." The team spent the following days preparing. Leela scavenged parts and built improvised devices to disable drones and shields. Mara gathered intelligence, observing patterns in patrols and schedules. Jax trained both sisters, teaching them how to move silently, defend themselves, and think quickly under pressure. Every day, their confidence grew. The Council, meanwhile, was not idle. Reports of the hub's infiltration had reached them. Security measures were increased, patrols doubled, and intelligence operations intensified. But each move they made revealed one critical flaw: humans do not follow predictable patterns, and in the unpredictable, humans excel. Finally, the night came when they were ready. Under the cover of darkness, the trio approached the Council's orbital elevator, the gateway to the ship. Energy fields shimmered around the platform, and Zythurian guards patrolled the approach. "This is it," Jax said. "One chance, one moment, and we either succeed or we fail." Leela's voice was steady. "We've prepared for this, we can do it." Mara nodded, gripping Jax's hand. "For the chosen, for humanity." With a deep breath, Jax activated a small device, creating a temporary blind spot in the energy fields. They moved quickly, silently, and with precision, slipping past guards and sensors. Every step was tense, every heartbeat loud in their ears. At the elevator platform, Jax set charges that would temporarily disable the ship's shields, giving them access. Leela monitored the system, her fingers moving quickly over the interface. Mara kept watch, alert for any unexpected threats. When the final sequence completed, the platform shimmered open. The path to the Council ship was clear for now. Jax turned to the sisters. "Ready." They nodded, and together they stepped into the unknown, into the heart of the Council's power, human courage blazing like fire against the cold logic of the Zythurians. The trials had tested them. The Council had underestimated them. And now, for the first time in generations, humans were taking the fight to their oppressors. The battle for freedom had begun in earnest, and there was no turning back. The Council ship hovered silently above Neoterra, gleaming like a metallic star in the darkened sky. From the city below, it seemed untouchable, a floating fortress controlled by beings who had ruled humans for a century without challenge. But Leela, Mara, and Jax had never been ordinary humans. They had faced impossible trials, defied the Council's logic, and discovered a truth that no Zythurian could calculate. Human courage, creativity, and loyalty were unpredictable, unstoppable forces. Standing at the platform of the orbital elevator, Jax looked at the massive ship above. Its shields pulsed with energy, drones circled in precise patterns, and security protocols scanned for the faintest irregularity. The odds were against them, but humans always thrived when the odds were impossible. "We have one shot at this," Jax said, voice low but steady. "We disable the shields, get inside, and rescue the chosen. We can't wait for them to come after us. We make the first move." Leela adjusted her wrist-mounted control device. "The shields run on a cyclical pattern. If we synchronize the charge with the pulse, we can create a temporary window to get through." Mara's hand tightened on Jax's arm. And once we're inside, they'll be waiting. The council won't make it easy, Jax nodded. Then we'll fight smarter, not harder. Remember, humans adapt. We improvise. They don't expect that. The elevator hummed as it ascended, carrying them closer to the ship. Lights flickered on the walls and sensors scanned relentlessly. But Leela's device worked perfectly, creating brief blind spots in the system. Jax moved with quiet confidence, Mara close beside him, both alert and ready. As they reached the outer hull, the first wave of drones detected their approach. Energy beams sliced through the space between them. Jax pulled a small plasma blaster from his belt, aiming with precision. Each shot disabled a drone before it could strike, sending sparks across the dark metal surface. "Keep moving," he shouted. Mara rolled past a beam, narrowly avoiding a strike, and Leela adjusted the device, expanding their window of opportunity. Step by step, they reached the airlock. Jax attached a makeshift hacking module to the door. Sparks flew, circuits buzzed, and for a tense moment, nothing happened. Then, with a hiss and a click, the door slid open. They were inside. The interior of the council ship was vast, with corridors glowing in soft blue light and control panels lining every wall. The ship's layout was unfamiliar, but Jax had learned from previous trials. Humans succeed not by knowing everything, but by thinking fast and acting boldly. They moved carefully, avoiding patrols and cameras. When a group of Zythurian guards appeared, Jax acted without hesitation. He used a combination of smoke bombs, quick maneuvers, and improvised gadgets to disable them quietly. Mara followed his instructions, covering angles and keeping Leela safe as she continued to monitor the ship systems. At last, they reached the chamber where the chosen humans were held. The room was secure, energy barriers pulsing to prevent escape. And there in the center stood the captives, children, engineers, and ordinary humans, each looking frightened but alive. Mara's eyes widened. "They're here, all of them," Jax grinned. "Then let's get them out." Leela quickly set to work, hacking the barrier's control panel. Sparks flew, and alarms began to blare, but she persisted, focusing entirely on the sequence. Jax and Mara stood guard, fending off the first wave of reinforcements that arrived as a response to the alarms. Using a combination of distraction and strategy, Jax guided the captives through temporary openings in the barriers. Some were hesitant, terrified of the unfamiliar technology, but Mara's calm voice and encouragement helped them move forward. Step by step, the group advanced, with Jax and Leela covering their retreat. The Council, realizing the breach, deployed the ship's elite security forces. Sleek, swift Zythurian soldiers moved through the corridors with deadly precision. But they had never faced humans who fought as a coordinated unit, who anticipated, adapted, and improvised at every turn. Jax led a small team of freed humans to create diversions, knocking out guards with quick strikes and improvised tools. Mara guided the frightened captives, keeping them calm while dodging patrols. Leela hacked systems as she went, shutting doors, disabling cameras, and opening escape routes. Together, they turned the ship into chaos for the first time in a century. Finally, they reached the final corridor, the launch bay. The escape pods were lined up, ready to deploy, but guarded by the Council's strongest soldiers. Jax assessed the situation quickly. "We'll split up," he said. "Leela, you handle the pods. Mara, you guide the humans. I'll hold the line." The battle that followed was fast, intense, and precise. Jax moved with calm confidence, using his environment to his advantage. He kicked over control panels to block paths, hurled smoke grenades to blind sensors, and struck with accuracy that no Zythurian expected. Mara directed humans, helping them slip past enemies and into the pods. Leela's fingers flew across the controls, overriding the pods' security codes and preparing them for launch. As the last humans entered the pods, Jax faced the final wave, a group of elite council soldiers blocking the exit. He dodged, rolled, and countered with improvised tactics, exploiting weaknesses in their formations. For every move the council expected, Jax had an unpredictable response, a signature of human ingenuity and courage. The fight was brutal but short. Jax, Mara, and the freed humans overcame the soldiers and reached the pods. Leela activated the launch sequence, and one by one, the escape pods rocketed into space. The council ship's alarms echoed through the corridors, but it was too late. The humans were free. Outside, the pods scattered in all directions. Neoterra's citizens, watching from below, saw lights streak across the sky, humans returning from captivity. Hope ignited across the city. The impossible had happened. The Chosen were free, and the Council's authority had been challenged in a way it had never experienced. Jax, Mara, and Leela watched from the last pod, relief washing over them. "We did it," Mara whispered, tears streaming down her face. Jax tipped his hat, a small gesture that carried the weight of triumph. "No," he said, "we did it together. Humans did it," Leela smiled. "They underestimated us. They thought fear would control us, but courage is human." The pods returned to Earth, landing safely among cheering citizens. Word spread instantly. Humans had defied the Council, rescued their own, and shown strength that no alien intelligence could predict. Neoterra began to stir with energy, people talking openly about rebellion, freedom, and the value of human ingenuity. The Council, though still powerful, had lost the element of surprise. Their calculations failed against creativity, loyalty, and adaptability, the very traits they had dismissed for centuries. And humans, inspired by the bravery of Jax and the sisters, began to realize their potential. Weeks later, the trio stood together on a rooftop overlooking the city. The green-tinted sky had lightened with dawn, and the first signs of human initiative were everywhere. New patrols of humans protecting districts, messages of encouragement spread through communication networks, and citizens daring to reclaim their own spaces. Jax looked at Mara and Leela. "We've won a battle, but the war is just beginning. The Council will respond and they will adapt. But we've shown the galaxy what humans can do," Mara smiled. "And we'll keep showing them. Every time they try to take someone, we'll fight back." "Together," Leela nodded. "Humanity isn't weak. We're creative, brave, and loyal. That's our strength. And now everyone else can see it too." From the streets below, cheers rose. Humans were reclaiming hope, unity, and courage. Stories of Jax, Mara, and Leela spread across Neoterra and the outer colonies, inspiring others to resist, to protect, and to fight for freedom. Jax placed a hand on Mara's shoulder. "Remember this moment. Remember that humans can rise, no matter how small they seem." Mara squeezed his hand. "I won't forget," Leela added, "and neither will anyone else. This is just the beginning." The sun rose higher, illuminating the city in a pale golden light. The Council ship was still above, a reminder that challenges remained. But for the first time in generations, humans did not tremble at its shadow. They stood tall, ready to defend their freedom and their future. And in that moment, Jax, the cowboy from the outer colonies, had become more than a hero. He had become a symbol of humanity's spirit, a reminder that courage, loyalty, and ingenuity could overcome even the most impossible odds. Humans had fought, humans had adapted, and humans had risen. The stars above Neoterra no longer seemed distant or unattainable. They were a horizon filled with promise, freedom, and the unshakable truth. When humans fight, they fight with heart, and nothing, not alien logic, not overwhelming power, can break that spirit.